Basic. But basic arithmetic favors the side with the greater numbers. Observe. Now that I've observed the courtesies. Bandit. The roads are crawling with cutthroats and bandits. Logic. But in business, I trust in logic, not passion. Yank. It yanked 100-foot trees straight from the ground. Stepmother. My stepmother didn't want any rivals for her precious daughter. Mitigate. But my losses were definitely mitigated. Immune. But none that are immune to flattery. Flattery. To think that I will succumb to flattery. Invincible. The lords of Westeros will realize he's not invincible. Heir. Many who believe Ned Stark erred by not supporting your claim. Abolish. But our queen recognizes that she erred by abolishing slavery. Hay. But she can't lift a bale of hay. Courageous. Grateful for your late father's courageous support for his claim. Sleepless. It's not the wildlings giving me sleepless nights. Successor. But there are other ways of choosing a successor. Yearn. But they do seem to yearn for it. Messy. But things can get a bit messy. Succumb. But you let him die. Made sure he succumbed. Mince. But you've come mincing all this way for something. Translation. So the proper translation for that prophecy would be accurate. Well, calling you fucked wouldn't be strictly accurate. Appeal. By appealing to their loyalty, their love for their country. Fray. By staying out of the fray, you've allowed Tywin Lannister. Text. There are some who know every verse of the sacred text. Pointed. By the holy text. The 7-pointed star. Welfare. Regarding the welfare of Meereen and the Bay of Dragons. Confusing. The battle would be terribly confusing. Literate. Can't say I've ever met a literate Stonemason. Candy. Candied plums from Dorne. Almond. Candied almonds custard. Overflow. The world is overflowing with horrible things. Dreadful. Chvialfin was a dreadful writer. Writer. Shame Archmaester Chvialfin wasn't a better writer. Nearby. Chances are I won't be nearby the next time that happens. Chew. I'm used to men who could chew that boy up. Clap. Clap your hands. Barn. There's fresh hay in the barn. Undo. I would do anything to undo what's been done to you. Concession. They did ask for some concessions. Brink. Trying to placate a city on the brink of civil war. Solitude. Contemplate the mistakes in the solitude of a cold cell. Corn. I never used to get corns. Countless. How many countless living crawling things. Spoke. They're all just spokes on a wheel. Duck. Cracking open like a duck egg. Asunder. Cursed be he who would seek to tear them asunder. Unmarried. Daenerys is young and unmarried. Darken. You sit alone in a darkened room, mourning their fates. Whereas, death is so final, whereas life. Impression. Did I give you the impression that this was a negotiation? Marked. Did you know there has been a marked drop in thievery? Chapel. There's no name on it or anywhere else in the chapel. Inflict. Didn't inflict their vanity on those who came after them. Sorcery. Died because of the Red Woman's sorcery. Dishonesty. Not very noble to accuse a lady of dishonesty. Phantom. People talk about phantom limbs. Struggle. Do not become what you have always struggled to defeat. Stale. Do you have any stale ones from yesterday? Gash. Do you lie awake at night fearing my gash? Smirk. Our baby boy set to marry that smirking whore from Highgarden. Captivity. Do you wish to resume your captivity? Drift. Does he drift away like a kite with his strings caught? Amuse. Does that amuse you? Underground. Does the well lead to an underground river? Enforce. Don't think you're gonna be there to enforce those orders. Swill. We brought our own wine, not the swill they serve here. Limp. Downwards from his horse did limp. Drain. My father put me in charge of all the drains. Scythe. If the climbers get too high, drop the scythe on them. Shelf. Of King Robert I so it can sit on a shelf unread. Pauper. Perhaps if your pauper husband, ecstatic, she's ecstatic when you bring her this enemy dwarf. Enhances it, really. Rejoin. Open the door and the men inside can rejoin their brothers in peace. Yourselves. Listen to yourselves. Grotesque. Even if the boy lives, he'll be a cripple, a grotesque prostitute. Even prostitutes may earn the mercy of the mother. Drill. Will drill daily with spears, pikes, bow and arrow. Mule. Were to sell his mule and his last pair of shoes. Flip. Every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. Traveler. Seems to me the smart place to meet travelers is in a tavern. Reform. My uncle the Blackfish has reformed it and retaken Riverrun. Exhausted. To be honest. But. Purple. Wild lemons on a purple field. Furious. Father will be furious. Kid. Fed a prized partridge to my hungry kids. Ferment. Fermented crab. Fermented crab. Midwife. I had Grand Maester Pycelle, an army of midwives. Squad. I'll send Hal with a squad of guardsmen to escort you. Campaign. For 20 years the spider oversaw the campaign to find and kill me. Sober. For a fortnight anyway, until the Septon sobered up. Assignment. I'm waiting for word on an assignment. Respectful. For being a thoroughly respectful fellow. Peril. For guarding us all from the perils beyond the wall. Conceal. Some say that beauty most desired is the beauty concealed. Incident. May our journey continue without further incident. Stomp. For that lecherous little stomp. Emerge. If I emerge from this with my head still on my shoulders. Magician. For years I've heard that Littlefinger is a magician. Violation. That might constitute a violation of the tenets of the faith. Fiery. The king has taken for his sigil the fiery heart of the Lord of Light. Formidable. Just how formidable a person you were dealing with. 7th. Fry will burn in the 7th hell for what he did. Collarbone. Right under the collarbone. Inquest. The High Septon has called for an inquest, not a trial. Socket. From their sockets and let my dogs do the rest. Whelp. Fuck to cook and whelp to whore. Reflection. Hoping the dragon would only see its own reflection. Van. Galbert Glover will lead the van. Gambling. Your Grace. Formation. Get the men into marching formation. Turnip. Get the turnips. 2. Dressed. We're dressed like common merchants. Giggle. Giggling like a pair of girls. Impregnate. Give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate the bitch. Constant. I'm a constant disappointment to my own father. Stretcher. Go find the breastplate stretcher. Now. Squeeze. Grabbed me by the neck and squeezed so hard. Thaw. Unless there's a thaw we can't press forward to Winterfell. Oat. 500,000 bushels each of barley, oats and rye. Rapist. You live among murderers, thieves, and rapists. Postpone. Has been postponed on the king's orders. Institution. I am merely an instrument of the institution I represent. Level. Has the faith leveled official charges yet? Hash. Ishish Cherachero Hashmi Nemervi. Nharazun. Entry. Have been permitted entry to the Red Keep. Hunger. Have you ever known true hunger? My lady? Idle. Have you ever known your father to make an idle threat? Reap. Have you ever reaped the grain? Root. Our Ironborn and Dornish allies were attacked en route to Dorne. Barrack. To feed all former slaves and barracks to shelter them. Linger. It's no mercy, letting a child linger in such pain. Govern. None of us have experience governing a city. Tusk. He dug in his tusks and dug out my guts. Tattoo. In Volantis the slaves have tattoos. Cache. So he had his pyromancer place caches of wildfire all over the city. Sheer. He kept his house in power through sheer will. Snore. He once killed a man for snoring. Polish. He polished his shield for a week so that it was like a mirror. Curly. He preferred curly-haired little girls like Loris Tyrell. Reverse. I'd say the reverse is just as likely. Warmth. We were only close together for warmth. Roar. He sniffed and roared and smelled her there. Witty. Witty remarks won't make a difference. Liking. If that's not to your liking, go home. Spoiled. You were a spoiled little cunt, but you were my brother. Altogether. To avoid a trial altogether by having me killed. Villain. The little hero always beats the big villain in all the stories. Nightmare. I've seen things crawl out of nightmares. Buyer. He'd fetch a good price to the right buyer. Accordingly. If Tyrion is found guilty, he will be punished accordingly. Leash. It's hard to put a leash on a dog. Education. I never did receive a formal education. Squirm. Is how I'm not tough enough. How I squirm at the sight of blood. Respected. My father, one of Meereen's most respected. Bend. Your grace, the world has got so far. Bend. Career. He's enjoyed a distinguished military career. Freakish. He's freakish big and freakish strong. Eyelid. How does he sleep with no eyelids? Cellar. We've brought up 8 barrels of ale from the cellar. Lieutenant. I encountered a situation with one of my lieutenants. Comet. Heard some of the men talking about the comet. Pelt. Her brothers gave her a pair of wolf pelts for her wedding. Deplete. Your armies are battle-weary and depleted. Rectify. Her grace wants to rectify their mistake. Possession. Sometimes possession. Westward. When Aegon Targaryen turned his eye westward. Unguarded. You are unarmed and unguarded because you know me better than that. Shiver. The crew is shivering like scared mice. Spoon. His lady of the hour pops a tiny spoon of that into his mouth. Ingrate. His sons would be ingrates. Bitter. They're bitter, angry little people. Hoist. Hoist her up. Holiness. I bow to the wisdom of your high holiness. Tolerate. House Tyrell won't tolerate this insult. Convenient. Well, that is convenient for you. Banker. Someone of importance to show these bankers our respect. Revolutionary. How do bankers usually fare with revolutionaries? Communicate. We obviously didn't communicate clearly. Pursuit. No better place for low pursuits than beneath the ground. Harsh. So guttural and harsh. Homecoming. This is a homecoming I'll tell my grandchildren about. Wizard. I always wanted to be a wizard. Flatter. I am flattered. Of course. To be pictured at all. Depravity. To keep her from the clutches of depravity. Mare. Loras knew his mare was in heat. Spice. I use them, you see, to bring spices from one port to another. Dedicate. I will dedicate myself to seeing you on the Iron Throne. Limb. I assume there will be more loss of limb before this war is over. Utter. Only it's easy for you to preach utter devotion to family. Dispense. The faith militant dispensed the justice of the 7. Score. I believe you still have some work to do on that score. Leisure. The hand of the king doesn't have much leisure time. Overly. You tend not to be overly concerned with the kind of distinction. Congratulate. I just wanted to congratulate you both and wish you good fortune. Accounting. I consider it an honest accounting. Fin. I could have sworn those were shark fins. Ladder. I did quite well with the latter considering the king in question. Stunning. I did spend some time with an absolutely stunning blonde the other day. Satisfaction. I didn't want to give you the satisfaction. Whim. I don't abuse them to satisfy royal whims. Signature. This is his writing his signature. Dissuade. I don't want to dissuade the other hunters. Embroidery. I got lost on my way back from my embroidery lesson. Palm. I had them in the palm of my hand. Accomplished. I happen to be an accomplished diplomat. Motivation. I have always found that to be the purest of motivations. First hand. I have been to Essos and seen the unsullied first hand. Description. I have dealt with fanatics of every description. Your Grace. Outfit. They'll outfit you with weapons at the forge. Informed. The most well-informed person I knew. Sleek. The sleekest little minx in Bravas. Swollen. We are swollen. Bloated. Foul. Reunite. She must be reunited with her babies. Hobble. I hobbled them last night. Dad. I just think about my dad out there on his boat all alone. Blister. I just wanted you to shut up about your damn blisters. Existence. I knew nothing about you save your existence. Dread. But still it filled me with dread. Absurd. I know you're behind this absurd incarceration of my grandson. 4A. I led the 4A when the enemies were at the gate. Canopy. I lie awake all night staring at the canopy. Ungrateful. I made a deal for you to keep your ungrateful head. Gouge. Tell me my future or I'll have your two boring eyes gouged out of your head. Turtle. I milked my eel into a pot of turtle stew. Willow. I need fennel root for those with fever. Willow bark. Runaway. I need him to turn this bunch of thieves and runaways. Expand. Or while you solidify and expand your position. Retain. When I take the throne, you hope to retain your position. Generosity. I owe my title and lands to your generosity. Your Grace. Omen. When their omens favor war. Patronage. I regret to say he did not honor me with his patronage. Player. I remember when the players came to my village. Thankful. So much to be thankful for. Predispose. I suspect the gods will predispose the common people. Verge. I thought you and I were on the verge of agreement before. Peacefully. When people are living peacefully in the world she built. Plank. You think Lady Stark is going to want a giant tow-aided plank. Tilt. Watching these legendary men tilting at the lists. Remedy. I wanted to remedy that. Cough. Then coughing up your last with no one but your horses to hear. Reclaim. She is here to reclaim the Iron Throne and the Seven Kingdoms. Amnesty. Robb Stark offered amnesty for the Ironborn. Archway. I would have noticed your dour head smacking into the archways. Blunder. I wouldn't let you wave your blunders around like a victory flag. Tangle. While he's tangling with the lion in the Westerlands. Pompous. I'd enjoy watching Bronn disembowel that pompous child beater. Inappropriate. I'd hate for you to do something inappropriate. Privacy. We'd like some privacy please. Tomb. I'd love to see their tombs really. Cask. I'll be sure to send a cask of the Arbor's finest your way. Memorize. I'll bet you've got it memorized since you got here. Plant. I'll plant the seed as soon as Joffrey and I are married. Excited. They haven't had much to get excited about since I left. Mama. I'm going to eat your dead mama. Monstrous. I'm guilty of a far more monstrous crime. Inclined. Who aren't inclined to accept a woman's rule. Mainly. I'm mainly interested in your facility with murder. Devout. To the needs of these devout prostitutes? Constrained. My life has left me uniquely unfit for constrained. Mass. I'm not sure deceit and mass murder are the best ways to start. Imprisonment. I'm not well suited for imprisonment. Locale. I'm truly sorry about the locale. Console. Well, you have completely failed to console me. Attached. Told you. I'm very attached to this knife. Flank. I've been told you're commanding the left flank. Pudding. She never let me have my pudding. 13. I've demanded a meeting of the 13. Devote. Is to devote my life to the 7. Solidify. I've found the perfect girl to solidify our hold on the north. Seagull. I've never tasted anything as good as grilled seagull. Pound. I've seen them pound a man straight into the ground. Shaft. I've seen you slip a shaft through a rabbit's eye at 200 yards. Penny. I've spent every penny I had. Purify. The dragons will purify non-believers by the thousands. Accountable. You shall now be held accountable. Assurance. with no promises or assurances from any of you. Dislike. If he dislikes one monarch, he conspires to crown the next one. Wide. If I ever kill you, your eyes will be wide open. Consolation. It would be some consolation, wouldn't it? Bodyguard. If serving as a glorified bodyguard is the sum of your ambition. Sum. If serving as a glorified bodyguard is the sum of your ambition. Comment. If you apologize for that comment, perhaps I'll. Mistrust. Nothing but centuries of mistrust and resentment. Crumble. If you owe them money and you don't want to crumble yourself. Lever. You use this lever to draw the string. Meaningless. They're not meaningless if half the city you intend to take is listening to them. Illusion. Shorn of our illusions. Hideous. Or I can make sure you die in the most hideous way imaginable. Brutal. My lady wasn't meant for a world as brutal as ours. Horribly. In a brutal, horribly uncomfortable sort of way. Circle. We've circled this farmhouse twice. Metal. In full plate metal for 16 hours. View. It is the view of the council. Dishonest. In my experience, only dishonest people think this way. Meantime. In the meantime, you are permitted to use the library. Oven. In the oven. The nice warm oven. Depth. Pull his bones down to your depths. Abstract. It always seems a bit abstract, doesn't it? Vital. That is a vital part of the great city of Myrene. Consort. Neither one of you is fit consort for a queen. Structure. Is one of the oldest structures in King's Landing? Bloom. There's nothing worse than a late blooming philosopher. Gracious. Isn't he a gracious host? Assessment. It appears Tyrion's assessment was correct. Swift. Swift as the wind he rides. Trace. We found no trace of the direwolf. Your Grace. Amusing. It might be quite amusing. Reasonably. It only took your Grace a year to learn Dothraki reasonably well. Exhilarating. It sounds exhilarating. Desirable. The most desirable bachelor in all 7 kingdoms. Apple. It was the size of an apple. Shameful. It would be shameful to slaughter such a man and call it justice. Birthday. It's a birthday message to his grandniece Walda. Muster. It's a shame he can't muster the same enthusiasm for his wife. Competition. The competition has become a bit stale. Harshly. We treated you a bit harshly. Haste. Last seen galloping south in some haste. Bedroom. You can choose one of my bedrooms if you want. Understanding. To come to a deeper understanding of their behavior. Irony. Old age is a wonderful source of ironies. Shell. Like a baby snail peeking out of his shell. Ragged. Listen to his ragged little breaths. Log. Take off that big log. Sullen. She's sullen and stubborn and sinful. Closely. Look closely enough and you can see yourself in them. Magnificent. Loras. Isn't the Queen's gown magnificent? Refreshment. Make sure His Grace did not lack refreshment. Quietly. Makes it hard to move quietly. Link. Many meesters whose chains are heavy with healing links. Inquire. May I inquire as to the fate of my man Bronn? Sometime. Would you take me hunting sometime? Intercede. Maybe we can count on Tyrion to intercede on our behalf. Mead. Meet and meet at my table. Rightly. Men whose allegiance rightly belongs to me. Entertain. To entertain ourselves before we die. Mistress. Mistress of the Iron Islands? More. Stare across the moors of Winterfell. Pressure. Pressures of command. No doubt. Inclination. Must be enormously difficult to accommodate that inclination. Crooked. You think carrying a crooked spear makes you a soldier? Scurry. You don't have the stomach for it. Scurry back into hiding. Stage. Twice I walked in on officers in stages of undress. Stockade. My brother Jaime rots in a northern stockade. Shower. My father will shower you with gold. Customer. My first customer of the day on her way home. Productive. Take a step toward a more productive relationship. Tragic. The destruction of the September of Baylor was a tragic accident. Bachelor. The most desirable bachelor in all 7 kingdoms. Drama. My mother's always had a penchant for drama. Sincere. Please accept my sincerest apologies. Neighborhood. Neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street. Superstitious. The Northerners are a superstitious people. Formality. There's no need for such formalities. Delicious. It does sound delicious. Defile. Raked and defiled. Finding. They have a better chance finding feed than glory. Wartime. You don't have to lecture me about wartime expenses. Type. You weren't Rinley's type, I'm afraid. Thoughtful. That's very thoughtful, Your Grace. Regroup. The rest of us will regroup at Harrenhal. Nation. Now his Calazar will trample no nations into dust. Sharpen. Now I sharpened this blade before breakfast. Squeal. 3 of you ought to be sufficient to make Lady Piggy squeal. Bicker. We'd bicker amongst ourselves instead of seizing it back. Adventurer. You would have been a lousy adventurer. Oddly enough. I do. Advanced. Of advanced grayscale being cured. Brooch. Though I suppose a brooch is a sort of pin, so forgetful. So forgetful these days. Dispute. Oh, no one disputes that, my lord. Rattle. Old men deny it with their death rattle. Performance. On the Gold Cloak's performance these last few weeks. Conclude. When the testimonies concluded and a guilty verdict rendered. Ocean. The ocean has come to swallow this place. Rate. The varying rates of grayscale progression. Preach. Only it's easy for you to preach utter devotion to family. Forth. Or go forth and hold his silence. Elect. Tonight. The Night's Watch elect a new Lord Commander. Unexpected. Others open in the most unexpected places. In fact. Otherwise it's gonna get infected and fester. Cater. Our establishment doesn't cater to plowmen and goat herders. Discontent. They would report growing discontent amongst the southern lords. Farmhouse. Outside a farmhouse when he was 3. Ink. The ink is dry. Parade. When they paraded her through the streets like a whore. Penetrate. Try to penetrate the enigma that is me. Tolerance. You'll find there's little tolerance for flesh peddlers. Express. Please express my safe travels, Lord Tyrell. Cleanse. The fire cleansed them of the sins of the world. Pod the trials in a fortnight. Positively. Yes, you look positively forlorn. Soul. Power is the sole province of the worst? Presumably. The wall has kept them out for thousands of years presumably. Prodigy. Prodigies appear in the oddest of places. Prone. She was always prone to melancholy. Extravagance. This tournament is an extravagance we cannot afford. Punishable. What you just did is punishable by death. Marker. There's one on every mile marker between here and Meereen. Unconditional. Queen Cersei demands Daenerys' unconditional surrender. Outer. The outer gate won't hold. Squall. With a squalling baby in her arms. Regardless of his own selfish desires. Reload. Intact. Ride south again with your mission complete and your army intact. Club. Ride up against me backside like a club. Rod. She needs the rod. Slayer of White Walkers. Sandstone. Yes, Sandstone. Cowardly. Their absentee king. Their cowardly king. Eagle. What happens to your eagle after I kill you? Envoy. Sent as an envoy by her son Robb, Lord of Winterfell. Rampart. The next time the Blackfish looks out from those ramparts. Bauble. Should you grow tired of Zero's baubles and trinkets? Poisoning. You arrive at the capital an expert in poisoning. Nameless. Whatever nameless shit heap you're from. Reign. You should give me the reins. I'm a better rider than you. Stature. The height of nobility. A man of your stature. Bystander. You've been a bystander to tragedy. Reunion. The king mentioned that since your reunion. Grape. The best year for red grapes in half a century. Suckle. Suckled me at her teat for 3 months. Suffice. Suffices to soothe ragged nerves. Inner. That boredom indicates a lack of inner resources. Midget. Watch yourself. Midget. Attitude. The high septon's behavior was corrosive, as was his attitude. Imminent. Then the prospect of imminent death. Tactic. Thank you for explaining siege tactics to me. Thankfully. Thankfully a suitor is already on his knees. Hearth. That you shall always have a place by my hearth. Dying. That's a horse dying. Research. The Archmaester has done some research on this subject. Thick. The bars on those gates are 4 inches thick. Telling. There's no telling who has eyes where. Layer. Upper layer of diseased skin was debrided. Plow. The farmers plowing the fields are yours to protect. Persuasive. The holy books are much more persuasive than I can be. Spook. The horses seem a little spooked to you? Infection. The infection no longer appears to be active. 10th. The Iron Bank has called in 1/10 of the Crown's debts. Do. Then I'm afraid they'll have to make do with what they've brought. Pony. To buy you that pony you want so much. Profane. The man who profaned his blade. Cloth. The men holding those bolts of cloth will make me king. Mysterious. Your turn. My mysterious foreign beauty. Rubble. The name suits our purposes far more than that useless pile of rubble. Separate. Your trial will separate the truths from the falsehoods. Objective. The unsullied will have another objective. Afloat. Though I'm sure many captains say the same while their ship is afloat. Penalty. We both know the penalty for that crime. Progression. The varying rates of grayscale progression. Cherry. The sour cherries was all crushed up and ready. Distract. The Stark forces are distracted. Abate. With any luck, the gout will abate with time. Brutish. Well, Mormont. As brutish as this life is. Translator. The translator you stole from Krasny's Monaclaws will remain. Organized. They're gonna be more organized than before. Headless. We're sitting down with people who want to see us both headless. Extravagant. The word extravagant has been used. Apply. The God's laws must be applied to all equally. Heaven. There are no 7 heavens and no 7 hells? Villager. They attacked a nearby sept and murdered the villagers. Dice. You hear lots of things playing dice with Lannister soldiers. Stack. They must have been great builders stacking stones so high. News. They tied the news for me too. Daylight. They told me a man's name and that man never saw daylight again. Irregular. Yes. Well, I suppose that life is irregular. Tasty. This venison. It's very tasty. Render. When the testimonies concluded and a guilty verdict rendered. Verdict. When the testimonies concluded and a guilty verdict rendered. Breeze. We'll ride to the water gardens with a nice breeze in our face. Bidder. Will remain to be sold again to the highest bidder. Rational. To restore order and rational leadership. Twisted. To the tune of a twisted demon monkey. Union. We need to act first and kill this union in its crib. Not. You think you're fooling anyone with that top knot? Extra. 2 is extra. You realize. Yes. Yes. Unimportant. Whether I like her or not is completely unimportant. Unusual. Unusual talent for a sellsword. Bang. We won't be banging on drums to let them know we're coming. Unique. We are all facing a unique fantasy. We both peddle fantasies, Brother Lancel. Retainer. With Sir Loras Tyrell and some 50 retainers. Savior. Who doesn't want to meet the Savior? Ditch. We've been sleeping in ditches the last few weeks. Stymie. Well, we've stymied the corruption. Kitten. When you are dancing in the meadow with your dolls and kittens. Plea. When you need to enter a formal plea for mercy. Ferret. Why should I let that old ferret choose my bride for me? Destination. Winterfell seems the logical destination. Anvil. You know, I've been hammering an anvil these past 10 years. Milkmaid. Your mother would still be a milkmaid. Cavalry. Your command of the cavalry was impressive. Betroth. You're still betrothed to Loras Tyrell. Ox. Your father was a stubborn old ox. Alarm. 20 men rode into our camp without a single guard sounding the alarm? Runner. 20,000 to the runner-up. Cattle. 20,000 head of cattle.